It looks like funny light things are pretty much in fashion these days. This is a 2011 Hyundai i30, and the instrument cluster lights sometimes work, sometimes don't, and the way to get them working is to do this. There we go. Wow, beautiful, fixed. Send it out on its way. Alright, what I'll do is I'll pull this cluster out. It looks like, you know, it's probably going to be a dicky connection behind it. I'll just make sure the connector's right, there's no funny powers and grounds going on. If there isn't, this could be an internal fault inside the cluster. So I'll check it out and I'll pull it apart and we'll go from there. Alright guys, I'm just going to show you step by step as I go once I take it apart, because it's too hard for me to try and do this while I actually hold the camera. Basically there's 2 screws around there, around that part there, 2 screws come out, and basically this is just held in by clips. And we just unplug the back of the trip meter and that's off. So now I'm just going to take out these 4 screws, 1 in each corner, and then we are going to have a look behind the cluster. I'll get back to you when I get that out. Alright guys, I've got it out. As you can see here, what I'm doing is trying to wiggle all these wires at the back just to see if we've got a funny connection. I'm mucking around with the connectors to make sure there's no tension on them or they're not pulling out or anything like that. And there doesn't seem to be. Everything seems to be fine at the moment. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I'm just going to muck around with this and see if there's anything I can find. If I do find something, I'll get you back on board just to make sure this doesn't need a cluster. But I seriously think it's a connection, so I'm going to keep playing around with it and I'll get you back up in a minute. Guys, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this, but if you look at the trip number and the Yodo number, watch what happens when I turn the lights on and turn them off again. You see that flickering? Probably can't see that on the camera, but they are definitely flickering. And if I move the wiring, while it's doing it, and it's still doing it. I'm going to pull this out, look at all the connectors. Everything looks good at the back of this cluster. All the pins look great. You probably can't see, but they definitely look good. Let's go have a look at the connectors. Okay, the main connector, they all look alright. The main one, all the wires are a little bit hard and sort of got a bit of tension on them when it was up here in the left hand corner. If you can see that sits about there, and that's fully tugging on it, so it's actually quite close. So what I'm going to try and do is see if I can get this harness over a bit, make sure all these wires are nice and snug. I will try a pin drag test just to make sure there's nothing else going on with the actual connection there. I'll clean them back out, I'll put it back in, and I'll see if that makes a difference. Alright guys, that's all back together and it is exactly the same. That wiring that I mucked around with absolutely makes no difference at all. I'm going to try the old tap on the cluster again, and if that works, we know that this is going to need a cluster. And obviously if it does, I'll just confirm 100% there's definitely powers and grounds going to it, but if there wasn't, the light wouldn't come on once we tap it. So let's give it a crack. My little tapping around the outside didn't do very much good, because I couldn't really get onto it too well with the back of my screwdriver. So I actually just put 2 screws back in, put it back in and started knocking it, and it came back alive, and then after 2 seconds it died again. So let me just show you that. If I can get it. You probably saw that. So listen, just to be 100% sure, I will pull it off one more time and I'll just double check those powers and grounds and illumination wires once I get a wiring diagram. Okay guys, so I put it all together. I did get the wiring diagrams and I checked for powers and grounds at the cluster, and I realized that every so often it was just dropping out. So I checked out the wiring diagrams and I followed it around and found out some of the powers actually come through this actual dimmer switch down here. So I just want to show you something. Check this out. There you go. As you can see, me moving these wires down here, look what it's doing to the actual dash. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to make sure that these terminals are right in this and make sure there's no wiggly movement in the actual switch itself. See whether I need to repair the wiring or the switch actually needs to be replaced. But I'm just constantly wiggling those wires, putting pressure on that connector. There we go. So look guys, this is one of those ones where I probably didn't have to pull the cluster out to check anything, but look, I had to make sure powers and grounds at that cluster. I was a bit suspicious it was the actual internal parts of the cluster, because just by tapping up here I could make it actually come back on, but obviously tapping up here transferred some vibration down here, and and that's what actually made the cluster come on and off. So that's a good tip for anyone that has one of these happening. Definitely check this dimmer switch. Like I said, I'm just going to confirm whether it's wiring or whether it's the switch itself, and I'll let you know. It's only the black wire that's causing the issue, so if I muck around with this black wire, I've moved all the wires individually and played with them one at a time, and it's only the black wire that makes a difference. I've disconnected the plug, I've checked the terminal tension, make sure there's no corrosion, and that looks good, and I've plugged it back in and still moving, it makes a difference. So it's definitely moving the actual male terminal on the switch. So this dimmer switch needs to be replaced 100%. I'm going to get a new switch in it, and we're going